Good evening. We're going to start the program in 3 minutes. Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, everyone. Thanks a lot for coming. My name is Saeed Mohammed. I work here in the National Collection Special Initiatives Department at Qatar National Library. Thanks a lot for coming to this special lecture by Mr. Sainath on agrarian crisis in the age of inequality. So we are all familiar, I guess, like I should have used more proper words like instead of agrarian food crisis, which is all related to us, what we eat and how it's going to affect us today, if not today, tomorrow. But still many people believe it's already affecting us. It's just that we are not fully aware of the situation or how deep the crisis we are in. And this is what today's speaker is going to talk about it, to kind of give you a full picture on the state of the agriculture crisis or the food crisis that we are in. And we will kind of have a guided discussion about how to come out of this crisis. And although it's impossible to have all of these discussions in a short time, but at least it will be a kind of initial conversation, and that will lead you to think about more deeply about the situation, particularly the very important thing of our life with the food. And so we will talk about various aspects, cross-cutting issues from inequality, corporatization, climate change, how all of these issues are being affecting, and also the social implications as a result of these crises, from unemployment to rural to urban migration. All these issues will be covered in today's lecture. And to talk about this one, we have a very special guest. And he's been thick and thin of these topics for a very, very long time. He's been covering these issues for almost 4 decades, in India. And that's Mr. Sainath. A short bio, I guess most of the people are familiar with him, especially if you are from subcontinent, you know who he is. But for the rest of the speaker, I'll just give you a kind of a short introduction about our speaker. Mr. Palagumi Sainath is a passionately committed journalist who had continued to report rural stories from impoverished Indian villages during the rapid changes brought about by globalization. Since establishing the People's Archive of Rural India in 2014 as a platform for digital journalism, he has been engaged in groundbreaking project of collecting information about the diverse cultures of rural societies and disseminating this information in diverse languages. Despite his brilliant career, Mr. Sainath's dogged approach to the pursuit of knowledge has stayed unchanged. He collects information by scrupulously walking around the villages and talking to people, captures the reality in photographs, and reveals the real situations of poverty in rural communities. Between 2004 and 2014, he distinguished himself as the editor of the Hindu newspaper in charge of rural issues. His documentary films, A Tribe of His Own, The Journalism of P. Sainath, and The Nero's Guest showed how he worked and how these films gained international attention. He also served as an advisor to the federal government and state governments because of his commitment to rural reform. His major publication, Everybody Loves a Good Drought, is a collection of 84 of these articles and was highly praised throughout the world, and he was awarded the European Commission's Lorenzo Natali Prize for Journalism in 1995, the Amnesty International Global Human Rights Journalism in 2000, the United Nations FAO Burima Prize in 2001, and the most famous, the Raman Magsaysay Award for Outstanding Contribution to Asian Journalism in 2007. And also he has his latest book on the last heroes, the foot soldiers of Indian freedom, based on the oral stories. And today he will talk about for almost a 40-45 minutes, and then we'll have a guided Q&A. I would like to, I request you to kind of welcome him by giving a big round of applause for him. So I'll just show you time when the time is up. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Saeed. As I spot many of my compatriots in the audience, I'm tempted to start with a question. When we're discussing the agricultural crisis, the agrarian crisis, which is another level of crisis. And my question is, how many farmers are there in India? Do you think there are? What percentage of the population in India do you believe are farmers? Yeah. Take a shot at it. 75%? Okay. Interesting. Does anyone else have a bid to make? 60% are farmers, right? Okay. Anyone else? 20%, okay. Sorry? 20, okay. Okay. Any other bids or I close the auction? Huh? Actually, the number of full-time farmers in India is less than 8% of the population. But India being India and Indian population being what it is, 8% of the Indian population is still 95 million people. 95 million farmers. Now, here's something you should know. After independence, the population, sorry, so, by the way, full-time farmer is called in the census, that person is called main cultivator. And it means, it's defined like all other work groups in the census. A main cultivator is someone, like main worker, is someone who spends at least 180 days on that occupation. Because very few farmers can survive on just income from agriculture alone. It's not possible. So many of them do 3 jobs, 4 jobs, different seasons, migrate during the off-agriculture season, they do construction work, they do menial work, they do all sorts of things. So the person who works less than 180 days, maybe 3 to 6 months. Thank you. the person who works fewer than 180 days, that person is called the marginal cultivator. Okay? It's not marginal based on land size. The Census of India has a sensible and generous definition of farmer, which we have violated every day since 1991. The census definition of farmer is not based even on ownership of land. It is based on where you cultivating, supervising, running, operating a plot of land, no size is specified, where you cultivating that piece of land for 180 days or more, then you are a main cultivator. There's a reason you need such definitions. The reason you need definitions is, if anybody who does 5 days of cultivation becomes a farmer, then all the corporate CEOs who have private winery and grape farms in Nashik, they go on Sundays to see how their grape farm is doing, they all become farmers. And they claim subventions for that purpose and subsidies. Okay? So you must have some definition, and the census definition is anyone who has spent 180 days, which is half a year. Now, what does it mean when you are spending 180 days? What does it tell me? It tells me that this is your primary source of income. The maximum part of the year you have spent on this, it is your primary source of income. Whereas if you spend 1 month on it or 2 months on it or weekends like the hobby farmers of the corporate world do, you don't have you're not a farmer really at all. That's why you need some definition. So the main cultivator, 180 days and more. Marginal cultivator between these two. Please note that the census definition does not demand that you own the land. It does not demand that you are a male. It has no gender provision. Anyone is considered to be a farmer who fulfills that criteria. It does not demand an age criteria. It does not demand size of plot criteria. Nothing. Though it's understood to be 0.02 hectares in practice. Now for 30 years? 91, 2001, 2021. Yeah. For well over 25 years, we have violated the census definition of farmer because of a new set of policies we brought in 1991, the embrace of neoliberal economic policies in India. Here's another thing you should know. After independence, the number of farmers, the population of main farmers, main cultivators, rose in every census. 1951 census, it went up. 1961 census, it went up. 1971 census, it went up. 1981 census, number of farmers rose. 1991 census, the number of farmers went up. But that is the seminal year. That year, we introduced the new economic policies, and then 2001 census, huge drop in farmers. In 2011 census, even bigger drop in farmers. Let me tell you the numbers. In the 2001 census, fewer number of main cultivators, the figure had dropped by 7.2 million. Right? And in the 2011 census, the number of main cultivators fell by a further 7.7 million farmers, which means you lost roughly 15 million farmers in 20 years. Those people quit full-time farming. They quit farming, or they quit the full-time status. Why they quit it is the question of the crisis. Do you know what it means to lose 15 million farmers in 20 years? It means you were losing farmers at the rate of 2,000 every 24 hours. Do the math. 15 million divide by 20 years. It comes to 2,038 for every 20. Anywhere else in the world, that would have been acknowledged, hailed as a deadly crisis. That's something okay, let me put it this way. If forget 15 million, if 500 bureaucrats quit the bureaucracy, it would be the front page as a crisis. Right? So, but 15 million people leaving agriculture was not seen as a crisis. In fact, World Bank reports, IMF reports, and above all, McKinsey reports advocated pushing farmers out of agriculture. And the leader in that was from my home state, Mr. Chandrababu Naidu. The first page of the McKinsey report advises him, which is available to you online, says that you need to get 40% of the workforce out of agriculture. Wonderful. And what do you do with them? What happens to that 40%? They lie down and die? Did you create a single job for them? Did you create a single job anywhere in the country for agriculturists displaced? You said we are on this huge, brave new world of neoliberal market economy. Jobs will open up in industry. Not tell me a farmer who is a very skilled farmer, displaced in Mandya district, say, in Karnataka, which is the second highest district for farmer suicides in the south. Where does he go? Does he get a job at Infosys? Yeah, actually some of them got jobs at Infosys. I have been served by them in the canteen. You know, it was in India a matter of pride till the 90s to be a farmer, to say I'm a farmer. Your connection with the land was almost spiritual. It meant everything. People said with pride, I'm a farmer. Today no one says that. Yeah. NSS surveys show us that 40% of the farmer population would take another job tomorrow if they got it. They're not getting it. But we still pushed out 40% in Andhra Pradesh, and that led to the biggest electoral defeat in the history of Andhra Pradesh of Mr. Chandrababu Naidu. I've noticed a curious thing about McKinsey reports. Any government that implements a McKinsey report falls in the next election. So I call them McKiss of death. So the McKinseys, the government of India, the great, wonderful finance ministers hailed all over the world, making the pages of Business Week, the big journals. The policies that were set in place, I'm trying to tell you, were not accidental. They were not erroneous. They were created and implemented by design. They had a blueprint for it. But like the Abhimanyu syndrome, they got the first part right, and then they didn't know how to get out of the consequences. Right? since 1995, when we started keeping records of farm data in the National Crime Records Bureau, when we started keeping that data, since then, official data, which is horribly massaged, horribly underestimating, still shows us between 400,000 and 450,000 farmers having taken their own lives. In Maharashtra, just 2 years ago, last year's pre-budget economic survey, the official survey suggests that one was taking his life or her life every 8 hours. Yeah. Nationally, in that period around 2011, the rate of suicide was 1 every 32 minutes. You'll find all these stories in the Hindu. That's why I was then the rural editor of the Hindu. Now, please let me hear, when I speak on this subject, one, people are astonished that such a large number of suicides have occurred, and it is not an issue we are fighting at the national level with great vigor. We're not. Then some very clever academics, they work to downplay including the great Jagdish Bhagwati and Arvind Panagaria, the dons of Colombia, or as I call them, Don Bhagwati and Sancho Panagaria. Yeah. So they write in a book in which I'm proud to brandish as a badge of honor their 5-6 pages of attack on me, saying, what is there? At that time it was 200,000 farmers, 2007. They say, 53% of Indians are farmers, so that is actually a very low rate of suicide. And they actually go on to mock me by saying, we should try to bring the level of suicides in other communities to the level of farmers' suicides, because it's so low. Apart from the moral bankruptcy of that position, apart from the factual idiocy of it, you'd have to be a moron to make an argument like that. Apart from that, please note, then the Bhopal gas tragedy is meaningless. 0.03% of 20,000 people died. Okay, 0.003% of your population died. So it's not really a serious issue. You see the kind of thinking completely lacking in humanity, in compassion, in caring for your fellow being. All these are embedded in our academia and intellectual elite since 91. I am trying to tell you that, okay, let me also explain the difference between a farming crisis and an agrarian crisis. Farming crisis, agricultural crisis, and agrarian crisis are not the same thing. There's a very big difference between agriculture and agrarian. What does it mean? Let me lay that out so that then we can go ahead. But I've already shown you that the number of farmers is plummeting. The number of farmers taking their own lives is mounting horribly, so badly, and I used to every year publish in the Hindu annually what the internal report of the NCRB was before it was published. The very idea that we register suicides and suicide attempts under crimes. Suicide is coming under the National Crime Records Bureau, and attempted suicide is a penal offense. I asked the then agriculture minister, this is a great idea, sir. I told him that What you're really saying is, suicide is a crime. You commit suicide, and we'll teach you never to do it again. So this is the nonsense. This is the nonsense that we were fed for 20 years and have continued to be fed. Then, by the way, I have trained myself to stop using the word committed suicide. I say they took their lives by suicide, and I regret having used the word committed earlier, because committed is like a crime. Committed arson, committed rape, committed burglary, committed suicide. You're putting it in that category of crimes. Suicide is an entire, though suicide, I also believe, and let me share my view with you, I think suicide is a horrible form of violence turned inwards. When people are telling us, we don't want to live with your society. It isn't worth it. Suicide is violence turned inwards. You're not able to set anything around you right. Yeah? And nobody cares. So you take your life. Incidentally, farmers' populations are plummeting in every country in the world. There is not the crisis is global, and I get to the simple point, what that crisis is. In the United States, and we are locked onto the model of the United States. If the United States and Elon Musk decide to send elephants to Mars, we will also get into the race. First elephant should go from India. Right? That's how we behave. Our agricultural model is entirely locked into that of the United States. 50 years ago, 35% of the American population was in some way involved with, 35% of American families were in some way involved with agriculture. Today, farmers in the United States are less than 1% of the population. Okay? Less than 1%. And that means there are about 2 million or so of them on the farms, and out of them, about 1 million declare themselves as farmers. How would you like it if I told you that the American census from 2000, I don't know if they've set it right in the latest, but from year 2000 onwards, the American census does away with the category farmer. There is no separate category for farmer. You have to go to the drop-down menu under others. And from there you have to pick farmer. Where once it was the major category of the population in the census. So they are reducing so fast, so fast. Now, let's take Europe. Pre-European Union had 20 million farms with only 12 members of the European Union. Today, there are 27 members of the European Union. They have 9.1 million farms. 31.8% of those farms are in a country called Romania, whose status is very similar to the small farmers, etc. Now, then, you can look at country after country. Germany, West Germany before reunification had more farmers than the combined unified Germany has today. How do we account for this? That's why I am saying that it is no longer an agrarian crisis. In mid-1990s, it started out as a farming crisis. What is agrarian? Agrarian is, and why people think 53%, 60%, there's a logic and a justice to that. What does agrarian mean? Agrarian means tens of millions of people who are not cultivators, but whose lives depend on the farming economy. The village carpenter, mistri, the village tailor, the weavers. Do you know the first suicides wave in India with the new economic policies was not farmers but weavers. The weavers of the famous sari, Pochampalli. the Pochampalli weavers, 71 of them committed, or 71 of them died by suicide in a 1-year period. Why? Because the weaver, what is the weaver's first market? Agricultural labor and farmers for whom you made the soft white cloth in which you can work in 45 degrees heat, 42 degrees heat, 40 degrees heat. By the late 90s, all that was replaced by fake Benettons, color, T-shirts coming from China, Vietnam, Thailand, mainly Thailand in that time. And you destroyed you gave no protection to your weavers. Do you know that India has the largest number of weavers in the world, the largest number of weaving skills? Do you know that today, you will be very sorry to know this, Saeed, in your home state, there is not a single Tamilian weaver making the Kanjivaram sari. They've quit. They can't take it anymore. So who is making the Kanjivaram sari? Even poorer people from Telangana. They have been Padmashali, the Padmashali caste. They have been brought down from Telangana. So if you walk through Arni, which is where the real weaving takes place in Kanchipuram, household after household, you will hear Telugu spoken. They are even poorer than the Tamil. And what has happened to the Tamil weavers? Oh, they've been reskilled. They've become bus conductors and auto rickshaw drivers. People with 1,500 years of skills in their fingertips, making one of the greatest garments in the world, the Kanjivaram sari. They are bus conductors and auto drivers. They've been reskilled. Is that a reskilling or a deskilling? So they are part of agrarian society, the weavers. The carpenters, they were the first starvation deaths reported under the new system. If you're a village carpenter, a mistri, you don't get your earnings in cash. You get 30% of your earnings in cash. 25 to 30%, it varies. Where does your remaining 70% payment come from? The farmer for whom you make a bullock cart, for whom you make a plow, a yoke, an axe, whatever, that farmer pays you in produce. That farmer pays you in produce. That farmer pays you in produce. So many kilograms of wheat, so many kilograms of fresh tomato, so many kilograms of whatever. So you are paid 70% of your earnings, and your food comes in terms of kind, not cash. Now when the farmer goes bankrupt, the carpenter starves. So in carpenters, there were starvation deaths. Nobody is bringing a new order to you. Nobody is even bringing their tools for reskilling to you. You are not being asked to make one new bullock cart in 3 years. You are not asked to make anything. And so, they take their own lives. They are part of agrarian society. Like then the pot makers, the kumars, those who make pots, traditional pot makers. They are finished. See, none of these groups are cultivators. They are not agriculturists, but they are agrarian. Have I made very clear the distinction? That population is very large. Now, less than 8%, 7.8, 7.9% of the Indian population are full-time farmers. Marginal cultivators would come for another 2%, still less than 10%. 20% more comes from agricultural laborers. I call them landless farmers, but they are not in official reckoning. They are agricultural laborers. You add that 22% to this 10%, 20%, you get 30%. And then all the other non-cultivating classes who don't cultivate but are dependent on how cultivation is doing, they make up the rest of agrarian society. And that's why a lot of us think 50, 60% of our population is agricultural. Any confusion on that? Okay. Then in the 90s, okay, so Europe, Africa, Latin America, Brazil, which was a hugely rural country with millions of farmers, today the entire rural population, not just farmer, entire rural population of Brazil is 12% of the total. Everywhere the farmer is collapsing. I am saying in 1995-96 we had a farm crisis. By 2000-2004, it was an agrarian crisis. By 2010, it was a societal crisis. Everybody was affected by it. See, in India, except in 2 or 3 cities like Delhi, Bombay, everybody living in a city has a relative who is a farmer. His grandfather, his grandmother, his aunt, somebody. You'll notice that in the 2004 election and in the 2 elections in which Naidu was defeated successively, you'll find that urban Andhras voted as vehemently as the rural Andhra voted, because everybody was concerned about their close relatives. Urban Andhra inflicted an even bigger defeat on Mr. Naidu. Okay? So I'm saying by this time it was a societal crisis. For the last 5-6 years, I've been arguing it is now a civilizational crisis. We can possibly speculate on a world your great-grandchildren will inhabit, possibly, unless we are able to fight it, they might inhabit a world without farmers. All these problems, plus remember that AI has arrived. Artificial intelligence has arrived. What it is going to do to automation, what it is going to do to robotics is incredible. Remember when in India, the tractor came and displaced laborers. Then the harvester combine came and displaced millions of laborers. Now, even your harvester combine will be nothing compared to what is to come. And the trend shows you that farmers' populations are falling. Where does this crisis come from? In the last 40 years, what you are seeing is the corporatization of agriculture. In India, in Brazil, in most countries of the world, especially the third world, even Europe, farming is not a profit-making business. Farming is a livelihood. Professor M.S. Swaminathan, in his famous report, said, don't count agricultural growth in terms of quintals and tons. Count it in the growth of the income of the farmer. Okay? That's what, and mind you, it was a very big thing for Professor Swaminathan because he was denouncing his own earlier positions. He was critiquing a very different position that he took at the time of the Green Revolution. But there's another problem. I have very serious problems with the Green Revolution. However, what differentiated it, and today we are dealing with the fallout of the Green Revolution. But one thing about the Green Revolution was that it focused on food crop. It focused on increasing food production, which it did. In the last 30 years, we are focusing on increasing cash crop production. By the way, unfortunately, for all the Keralites sitting here, I will tell you this. Kerala is the most globally open, exposed economy in India. Yeah. It has been from even before new economic policies. It's been there even before new economic policies because of the plantation economy and everything else. I spent months in Kerala covering the farmers' suicides in Wayanad, particularly worst affected district. How were they? What was destroying the farmers? Because cash crops are incredibly volatile in prices. And there is a difference, one difference between food crop and cash crop. However badly the market behaves or treats you, you can eat your food crop. Yeah? You cannot choose sugarcane for a diet. You cannot eat cotton for a diet. Our entire policy framework moved people towards cash crop production with incentives, etc., and incredibly high risks. I give you the example of what happened in Kerala. There was a craze around 2000, 2003. I think quite a few are from Kerala. There was a craze in 2003 for growing vanilla, or as in Kerala they pronounce it as vanilla. Okay, so there was this craze for growing vanilla. I begged my friends, small farmer friends in Wayanad elsewhere, don't do this, please don't do this. Incidentally, you know the meaning of the word Wayanad? Vayalnad, land of paddy. You cannot find 10 acres of paddy in Wayanad today. The name Wayanad was Vayalnad, land of paddy. It's entirely cash crop. Right? So when you shifted to cash crop, my friends told me, Sainath, you may be a very idealistic, noble person. We are simply farmers who've got to live. We are getting the most fantastic prices for vanilla, whatever. I would be a criminal to my family if I did not take advantage of these prices. So they all went in for vanilla. Aided and abetted by the media. Malayalam Manorama runs the biggest agriculturist magazine, Karshagashri. Okay? Every month there would be one cover story of a vanilla millionaire. I counted 8 of them late in the different magazines who had taken their own lives within 2 years of that success story. What happened? Why were they being offered fantastic prices? This is global corporate reality. What happened was, by the way, 67% or 70% of all vanilla is consumed in the United States. It's the vanilla nation. Okay? Another 20% is consumed in Europe. Actually, we don't consume. There is no internal market in India for vanilla. The cost of production per acre is 3 lakhs, as against under Achyutanandan, who brought a price to the paddy. The paddy cultivation cost, regardless, people got a very good price. They tried everything, but people went in because the American Traders Federation of the Federation of American Vanilla Traders came around offering incredible prices to them. Unbelievable prices. You know how much? For 1 kilogram of vanilla, they were getting 4,000 rupees, which in those days, in 2003, was $100. The dollar was 40 rupees a dollar. Look at our achievement in making it 86 rupees a dollar. That is also an achievement of our new policies. Then, why were the Americans offering such prices? Because normally they got their vanilla from Brazil and Mexico. There was a huge climate disaster in those 2 states, in those 2 nations, for vanilla. The vanilla crop of those nations was wiped out. And therefore, they went around the world telling farmers, we'll give you this price, we'll give you this price. What our farmers in Kerala were unable to see was the prices they were offering them, they were also offering in 20 other countries, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, all these places. So the price went up to 4,000 rupees a kilogram. You know what the price by 2005 was? 68 rupees a kilogram. That is not a price fluctuation, it's an annihilation. Right? Why? Because Brazil and Mexico returned to the market. Yeah? They had 1 year bad crop, and it's easier for transportation and logistics to take it from them. So millions of farmers in Kerala, Kenya, Uganda, Madagascar, Maldives, suddenly they were left holding millions of tons of vanilla which they could not sell. And if they sold, it was at a fraction of the cost of production. That's when your wave of suicides, most of the suicides in 2004 in Kerala are in the vanilla farmers. By the way, this happened once before to Kerala coffee farmers. When Brazil had a frosted crop, you were offered very good prices for cocoa and everything else. Same thing happened. People were left holding the baby after the Brazil crop returned to the thing. Another time, they broke strikes in the Brazil coffee plantations by giving orders in Kerala and African countries. Now, we know nothing of that. So, when the strikes were broken, they went back to taking the coffee from those countries. And that was it. So, like this, the food crop to cash crop transition, please look at the amount of land that has gone. Look at the, secondly, total agricultural land in India since 91 has declined by millions of acres, tens of millions of acres. Yeah. We are making our food security situation more fragile, more problematic by tying ourselves in. And then, by the way, you put out your agricultural products and Trump comes along and announces his tariffs. What do? You bartered away your self-sufficiency in many areas. You have made 73% of rural Indians cannot afford a nutritious daily meal every day. These are the findings of researchers. You've done this. And then the hastening of the process of corporatization is they brought 3 farm laws. The government of India brought 3 farm laws. Did any of your media ever tell you that the struggle you saw at the gates of Delhi was the largest protest for justice in the world in 30 years? Much bigger than the famous Occupy Wall Street movement in USA, where 8,000, 9,000 youngsters, whom I'm fully admiring of, occupied Zuccotti Park in Wall Street, and within 9 weeks, after 9 weeks, the mayor of New York, in fact, the owner of the park, private owner, had no problems with the kids being there. He said, I'm sympathetic to them. But the mayor of New York ordered NYPD, throw them out. They were cleared in 9 weeks. Your farmers withstood the might of the state for 54 weeks without surrendering. And they got the laws withdrawn, which are now being introduced backdoor. All it does essentially, it hands over Indian agriculture, what remains of it, to the corporate world. Yeah. So you're looking at a crisis which is, let me sum up your agrarian crisis in 5 words. Corporate hijack of Indian agriculture. That is 5 words. What is the process by which this is done? 5 words. Predatory commercialization of the countryside. What is the result? 5 words. Greatest displacements in our history. Yeah. Now, in the COVID period, We all were so agonized when millions of people, crores of people, went back to the villages. There were these heart-rending, hypocritical, crocodile tear editorials. Why are they doing this? They shouldn't go back. They have a better chance in the cities. They made an absolutely rational decision. As they asked us when we interviewed them, they said, yeah, we should stay in the cities and depend on people like you. One of them told me, a driver told me, my employer, I have worked for him for 24 years. He never once asked me about my family. He never once asked me which village in Bihar I am from. He never asked me, what do you kids do? How do you fund their education? And today he is going to care for me if I remain. Better to die. If we have to die, let us die surrounded by loved ones. Not be a nameless Lavaris corpse on the streets of Mumbai. That was the correct judgment they made. And crores of people went back to their villages. Now they're coming back to the cities because there are no options. You know, they kept asking, why are they leaving? That was the wrong question. The real question was, why did they come here in the first place, leaving their villages? The answer to that was two words, agrarian crisis. Today, the big difference in Indian history, for the first time in independent Indian history, the struggle of the farmers at Delhi pitted the farmers' classes directly against the corporate class. You know when that last happened in Indian history? When you fought the East India Company. When farmers rebelled against the East India Company. That was the last time that Indian farmers took on the corporate world. By the way, they won. In the long run, they won that battle and threw the British out of India. Right? It was farmers who were the backbone of that. Now I am saying that it's no longer a societal crisis. If the entire class of small farmers across the world are in danger of survival, it is a civilizational crisis, because after humanity passed the tribal stage, every civilization, major civilization, has been based on the bedrock of the family farm, the family-owned farm. You know, the logic that they used for privatization, they can't use in farming. It shows their real game. Farming is a private sector. Farming is the biggest private sector in India. They don't want that. They want a corporate sector. They want farming to be taken over by the corporate world. So you can do it. It's possible. You can do it with 3% of the population. What do the other 97% of farmers do? I'll let you reflect on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sainath. I guess like among all the issues you said before, I want to talk about the solutions. I guess like you didn't mention about the impact of climate change, which is fast happening. And how much do you think the climate change is affecting the agriculture, both in India and globally? What do you see from the IPCC reports that you talked about it?
Ran out of time, so I skipped that. But look, we haven't even begun to seriously assess the extent of damage that climate is causing. But I can give you one very simple thing. You know, I have been advocating as part of a group called Nation for Farmers, non-farmers who support farmers. We have been advocating the building of mud heat shelters on the agricultural fields. Do you know, every year the number of women are the bulk of the agricultural laborers. Every year, more and more women are dying of heat stroke. Yeah. There is a place called Churu in Rajasthan. I'll give you one example. The Churu in Rajasthan is a very strange district. It is part of the Shekhawati belt from where the Indian Army has recruited from the times of the East India Company. There are families which have had 5, 6 generations in the armed forces. Churu in May 2021 was the hottest place on the planet at 51 to 53 degrees Celsius. The same Churu, the same winter, was the coldest place of the northern plains, not counting the mountains. Just look at it. Yeah, you're going to zero temperatures from 52 degrees. Huh? So climate is having a devastating impact. It is having, as we discussed in the afternoon, what it's doing to crop, what it's doing to fishermen. And again, I fear more than anyone, I fear for Kerala, because it is the lowest lying state. It is the lowest lying above sea level state. And I've covered the flash floods which wiped out farming in 2018 and 19 in Kerala. And that is happening all along the coastline and in interior states, in interior places. There in Anantapur district of Andhra Pradesh, there is in southern peninsular India, there is a desert of 3,000 acres because of the choices people made in growing exotic species of groundnut instead of the local species. Anantapur used to be an ocean of millets. They abandoned millets for cash crop because they were advised to by the experts from the 50s, 60s onwards, and that accelerated. Today, there is desertification over there to such an extent. Tamil, Telugu, Kannada, Malayalam cinema is gaining from that desertification. Earlier, when they made films with a desert fight, where the hero destroys 20 enemies, they had to go to Jaisalmer and Barmer, put 50 people in 5-star hotels. Today, they drive 3 hours from Bangalore. Okay? So, there is a famous film, Jayam Manade, Victory is Ours, by Vijay in 1998. It's using that, and if you see it, it's on Pari, on the People's Archive of Rural India, which I run. You can see that film under a story called It's Raining Sand in Rayalaseema. It's Raining Sand in Rayalaseema. I did that story, and I got permission from the film producer to use that clip, where you'd think, you would not believe that this is in southern peninsular India. Yeah? So that is the level of problems, and they are growing very fast. Fishermen, honey collectors, because bees are dying in large numbers. Oh, well, you name it.
I kind of wanted to use the quote of Wendell Berry. I guess like he summed up quite beautifully. We have bought unconditionally the economist's line that competition and innovation would solve all problems, that would finally accomplish a technological end run around biological reality and the human condition. And I guess like there's kind of like, we talked about like the technocratic solutions for everything, but like we talked about a lot of the problems, different crises that's been a poly crisis, but what is the kind of a solution out of it? What, if we don't depend on technocratic solutions, what is the best solution do you think we have for agrarian issues?
You know, because of time, there was one section of my talk I did not get into at all. Let me say a few words on that. The unprecedented growth of inequality. If you do not look at that, you're not going to be able to understand what kind of solutions there are. In India in 1991, there were 0 billionaires, $0 billionaires. India 2025, there are $211 billionaires. Okay? Entirely coming up in the new economic policy period. These 211 gentlemen, sorry girls, it's mostly men, and the 1 or 2 women who are there, they are actually heads of corporate families. It's not their, they just happen to be the matriarch of that family. These 211 individuals, what percentage of the Indian population is 211? I'll save you the math because I've done it. It is 0.00004 15% of the population, and these 211 individuals have accumulated wealth equivalent to 27% of gross domestic product, giving that entire other meaning to the word gross. Right? So this is the situation of inequality. Mind you, within the billionaires, there is further inequality. The top 10 of the 211 account for 40% of the total wealth. So you're having a racing concentration of wealth. You had a multi-billionaire, India's richest man, who celebrated his son's wedding with an expenditure of $620 million. I call it a business investment. You can ask me about that afterwards. It was a very shrewd business investment, in my opinion. But the sheer obscenity of it. In a state, in Maharashtra, where every year thousands of weddings get cancelled because the families can't afford them. That has been the norm in Vidarbha region for 20 years now. So you have this phenomenal inequality, gives incredible power to the corporate world. All the billionaires are from the corporate world. And they are not making their money from an expanding cake. They made it in the first year of COVID. Remember, the government of India acknowledged economy shrank by 7.7%. Yeah? But we made the largest number of billionaires ever in our history in that year. If you look at the 20 years in which we were having billionaires, we added about 4, 5 a year. But in the first year of COVID, we added 42 new billionaires, and most of them, the largest group, were from the health sector, from big pharma industry and chain hospitals. So you can see the economy is shrinking, but the billionaires are expanding. Right? So this level of inequality is, if that we don't understand, that it is not sustainable, you have no hopes of a solution. Yeah. But you still want me to, okay.
Yeah, so, but, okay, so we address this as a kind of a gross issue that we are facing it. But like, do you see that like there is some kind of a hope, like from the community, like a grassroots actions, like happening, like both at addressing like kind of a myriads of issues. You talked about inequality, corporatization, migration issues, like climate change. If you kind of like give us a little bit of hope, like, you know, okay, in each of these, some of these organizations or grassroots groups are working, if you can share like both Indian context and like global context as well.
I can give you not minor examples, but large ones, which are based on, first of all, for me, the victory of those farmers is the greatest sign of hope. That they were able to bring the state to its knees. Yeah? After the man had declared, there is no way, these are the law, we are not going to back out. And they never backed out on any other law. They had to on this, because the farmers of India understood that they were not just fighting for MSP or loan waiver, they were fighting for their survival. They were fighting for their survival. You want to dismantle the public mandi markets and bring in corporate markets? What will happen to them? So that was one thing. The sheer, I thought, for me, the farmers in that struggle, they reminded us of the meaning of the word resistance. Yeah? It was the farmers of India whom Gandhi brought against the power from Champaran onwards into the struggle against the British. Till then, the Congress was not a political party, it was a tea party in the Gymkhana. When the masses of farmers came into the national movement, that's when the British Empire tottered. Okay? So there is plenty of hope in the history of farmers' movements in India. Unlike, say, in Europe, where the farmers' movements, there are huge farmers' movements in Europe, but they are going rightward politically. more and more to the extreme right. Yeah. In India, they have stood for justice, not for picking on immigrants or anyone. They've stood for justice and fought for justice. That's one thing. Second, let me give you an example. For me, the greatest example of what is possible comes from Kerala. I have to clarify, I am not a Malayali, I am not a Keralite. I am a Telugu born and brought up in Tamil Nadu. How many of you have heard of a movement in Kerala called Kudumbashri? It is the largest movement in the world for gender justice and poverty alleviation. You know, I attended the foundation conference of the Kudumbashri in 1998, I think. Yeah? 10,000 women came, mobilized by the political parties. Today, the Kudumbashri movement has 4.3 million women members, and it is restricted to 4.3 million because the groups have a rule that you cannot have two women from the same family in it, so that the benefits are distributed well. They schooled me in economics. When I went, they called me to give a lecture, and they were all looking at me as I spoke about food sovereignty, food security. They were far beyond all these concepts. They had the concept of food justice. And the principle of food justice is the producer shall never go hungry. So, you know, the 4.3 million women are in very different occupations. About quarter of a million are directly in what are called group farming or collective farming called Sangha Krishi. Right? Sangha Krishi. Now, the smallest farm is 1 acre, on which 4 women, landless women, will work. The state, when there is a progressive government, the state intervenes to get them the lease on the land at decent prices. Because many of the owners are sitting in the United States with their grandchildren. Amount of land lying fallow, cropland lying fallow in Kerala is huge. Then, the biggest Kudumbashri farm, there are 70,000 such farms. The biggest Kudumbashri farm is 1 hectare, 2.5 acres. 10 women might work on that. You know what the principle is? That the principle of food justice is, suppose they produce, a Kudumbashri farm produces 1,000 quintals of paddy. By the way, they mostly go in for non-chemical agriculture, some for straight organic agriculture. Every Onam time, they only do organic bananas. For some reason, the public has understood that organic is better than chemical treated bananas. The public have understood that. So they make most of the money from bananas at Onam time. But most of them grow food crop. They grow food crop. Suppose a Kudumbashri farm produces 1,000 quintals of paddy. You know what the rule is? You cannot sell on the market until the needs of those 10 women's families have been met. Okay? That is the principle. If there were 10 women in that collective, their demand for the year of that paddy has to be met. What remains you can sell on the market. Food justice. The producer shall never go hungry. This is such a beautiful, inspiring thing, and they were destroyed, by the way, in 18 and 19 by climate change. They were the only small farmers group I knew that were making profits as farmers. And you know one thing, they controlled the banks rather than the other way around. Because in several villages, Kudumbashri is the biggest depositor. They use that collective strength. If you as the bank manager tried pushing them around, all Kudumbashri units would withdraw their accounts from your branch and give it to my branch or whatever bank. So the banks had to behave well with the farmers. unlike in other states. In 2018, the flash floods came, destroyed everything. Kuttanad, the rice bowl, everything was destroyed. And I have to tell you something about the spirit and resilience of these people, the hope it gives me. I went to cover the disaster as it unfolded. I went to a place in Kerala where the farms had, the floods were so deadly, they turned up the riverbed also. Even the riverbed was turned out. Okay, which means that the next season you'll have drought. Yeah, because there's no place to contain the water. So they had all of their farms 2 to 3 feet of poisonous effluents coming downstream from industry elsewhere. So we all went out to see the fields. And, the panchayat leader, he called a meeting of these women to meet me. I had someone translating for me. I can follow a few words of Malayalam when it is slowly spoken. But historically, no Malayali has ever spoken slowly. So, right. So, but I had a Malayali colleague telling me, he was admonishing the women. They came there, having their lives destroyed. They came there with great spirit. They were joking, they were laughing. And he was telling them in Malayalam, Sir is a very big journalist, internationally famous. He's come here to cover your tragedy and you're laughing like hyenas. They laughed even more. They clapped and laughed even more. Then we went to the field. The Kudumbashree male scientist, when he took me there, the technical worker, he gave me a mask. I was hearing the conversation behind me. The women were still joking. And I said, so he said, I asked, why should I wear this mask? He said, sir, it's poisonous here. All these effluents have come from the industrial waste. They've covered the field. You should cover your face to escape the poisonous of these effluents. Behind me, one woman was saying, and everybody else was laughing. She was saying, Are, he doesn't need a mask. He lives in Bombay. He doesn't need a mask. She realized that all of us have mutated genetically in Mumbai. Yeah, we take high levels of pollution into our system. So that kind of spirit and that kind of, based on the principles of justice, above all, I would say, we simply need to implement the directive principles of state policy in the Constitution of India. The right to work, the right to housing, the shelter, the right to food, which the Supreme Court has held is implicit in the right to life. The right to food, the right to decent work. If you implement but we have violated that Constitution every day knowingly and by design since 1991. If you start that, there is so much talk about fighting extreme poverty. What about fighting extreme wealth? It does far more damage. It swells the ranks of extreme poverty. So, you know what the first paragraph of the directive principles of state policy say? It is the duty of the state to fight and mitigate inequality. That is the duty of the Indian state. We have doubled it, trebled it, quadrupled it in the last 30 years.
We'll open up the floor for questions. If you have any questions, please raise your hand so we'll pass by the mic there. Okay, so Ravan, would you mind just passing this mic around? If anyone else has questions, please raise your hand. We'll just take 3-4 questions together and we'll have quick responses for that one. By the time, Raman just hands over the mic, very quickly, do you think, the alternative to extreme corporatization, do you see the idea of Kudumbashree as cooperatives, would be a kind of a solution to it?
Collective strength of the poor and the farmers. Okay. That is one. But you want to transform agriculture to a different level, you have to get corporations out of the agriculture sector, completely out. No corporations in agriculture. We're talking about the food we grow, the food you eat. That comes, what will corporations do? They will standardize that food to include all sorts of harmful substances that allow them to make higher profits. Right? So you have to get them out of agriculture and decree that agriculture is the property of the Indian people.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, good evening,
Just
everyone.
mention your name and where you're from.
Yeah. My name is Amir Rafiq. I happen to be a teacher here in
You happen to
Pakistani
be
school. And I'm
Teacher,
from,
can you just speak? Can
yes,
you keep-
I am from Pakistan. Amir Rafiq, my name. And I've done my master's in agriculture. And in 2014, I just come out of my university. Back there, sir might be know the university name, University of Agriculture, Faisalabad, famous university. And I just happened to around here and walked around and come here. And I'm very happy that sir is here and I can listen such a learned scholar. Thanks, sir, for coming here. So my question is, sir, like in Pakistan, we have just started a national campaign on this corporate farming. As you are saying that, and we, as a farmer, I am having a background of farmer. My father was farmer and my brother is doing farming. So we have these issues like these concerns actually that if corporate sector would come, that then these small farmers, what would they do? Like, but at the same time, as you said, like when climate changes are happening around, small farmers cannot afford that. You can say the technology, the machinery that actually needed for this modern age farming. So how can we mitigate or how can we solve the both problems? We need the modern technology at the same time we don't have resources.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Sir.
Whose technology and in whose interest is the technology introduced? That is the question really. Now, most of the technologies that have been introduced in agriculture are anti-farmer and anti-people. They displace jobs, they displace livelihoods. Because the technology being introduced is introduced in the interest of the corporate sector, not in the interest of the farmer. You need technologies that are introduced in the interest of the farmer. I even said, like, I want every farm to have a mud shelter for women and all agricultural laborers in the period of extreme heat. They should be able, it's a mud shelter, it will be cooler. They should be able to take their chai break sitting there. Yeah? And we should absolutely see that it is there on every farm. Also, by the way, women are disproportionately affected by climate change. The largest number of people affected in the largest number of ways is women. This is a fact. I mean, indisputable fact by all the evidence that we have. Now, the technologies that have been introduced, BT cotton, genetically modified cotton, it has devastated the lives of people. Where it has been maximum, there have been the highest number of suicides. I'm not making a direct causal relationship, I'm giving you a correlation. Right? So, it's not just we need technology. What technologies do we need? What is the appropriate technology for something? How do we, and who gets to decide which technology will be used? So, and your relatives are absolutely right in fearing the coming of the corporate sector.
So next question, anyone who's here? Yeah. Just try to keep your questions very brief, please. Yeah.
Yes, sir. I am Manoj from Kerala. My name is Manoj. I am from Kerala, from India. Few questions. First one is development perspective. We have you will have an upward mobility, right? I mean, if you are a farmer's son, farmer's family.
Can you speak?
Yeah. If you, in a development perspective, you will have an upward mobility when you grow in terms of your, if you are a family of farmer, you will have an education, you educate your children, then they go to some kind of employment, then earn income, then get into a better job, so on and so forth.
So,
That's generally called upward mobility.
correct.
Therefore, in that perspective, what is wrong with a family move out of farming and get into a employed category sector? That's one question. Second question is, in terms of, you mentioned we cannot have corporates in farming. We are already having tea estates and stuff like this in terms of corporate. Then third, no, then in India, I don't know whether I am correct or not. In agricultural sector, we have high percentage of wastage in water. I don't know whether this is a correct perspective or not.
Okay, I get the question. All three questions are very valid. Let me begin with the last one because it is the simplest. Indian agriculture does have, in my opinion too, a wasteful excess of water use. Are you aware that water use is incredibly higher for cash crop than for food crop? Okay. Take sugarcane. In Maharashtra, sugarcane is grown in drought-prone areas of Marathwada. Okay. Do you know how many liters of water 1 acre of sugarcane takes? 18 million liters of water. Roses, 21 million liters of water. We are today growing roses for the Amsterdam market in Netherlands. We are growing tulips in Tamil Nadu for the Amsterdam market, multinational market in flowers. Yeah, the Dutch people don't know that their flowers are coming from, South Tamil Nadu. They don't know that. And okay. So first, cash crops, which we are growing for external markets, yeah, and which can change at any time if they pull out with Trump tariffs or whatever tariffs. It is extremely fragile and dangerous. Second, the amount of water consumed by cash crop, in 1 acre that you make of sugar cane, you can grow 8 acres of paddy, you can grow 12 acres of jowar, 12 plus acres of bajra. You can grow 12 acres of any millet in that water you use. Do you know what 18 million liters is? To give you an idea, it is the size of 7.5 Olympic-sized swimming pools. That is the water. Or the full volume occupied of 9 Boeing Dreamliner jets. This is wasteful use of water. We have to start by curbing it there. Second, there are experiments in India where people are doing system rice intensification. They are growing even more higher production of rice with a quarter or half of the water used. We need to do that. But food crop is not our priority. Yeah, we've been told by the World Bank, grow cash crop. You can export it for hard currency, for dollars, and you'll end poverty. Today, the Trump tariffs have made a mockery of growing cash crops for eliminating poverty, right? So that was the first of your questions. Third of your questions. The very first one, where do people go? What happens with agriculture? I am saying that if the farmer opts for a different occupation, we must support that. But what new jobs, what options have they been given? Have they been given any options? You have shut down the major public sector units of your country, or you have privatized them. Immediately on privatization, hundreds of thousands of jobs are lost in those sectors. We have lost millions of jobs in the public sector since 1991. Right? So what I'm saying, you have no right to tamper with someone's livelihood. You meaning all of us. we have no right to destroy someone's livelihood where they do not have an option. And they are ending up, skilled farmers are ending up doing menial jobs in the cities. My wife and I live in Mumbai, and we were served for 9 years by a woman, a maid, who worked in 4 houses in the building. She was a skilled farmer from Talegaon in Pune district. She had enormous skills, and she was sweeping floors and swabbing floors and washing utensils. A person of enormous skills. Right? So that de-skilling has also taken place. What do we, you have, my point is, no right to remove anyone from their livelihood unless that person opts for a job that does exist. And in between the second question, please remind me, sir.
About the, sorry, yeah, about the corporate already existing, we have estates, I mean tea estates and coffee estates and stuff like that.
Corporate?
In you said.
Yeah. Okay, those, by the way, that's why I said Kerala is in many ways the most vulnerable economy, because those tea estates, the rubber estates, the cardamom estates, all these are linked to the global market and volatility of global prices. That's why I said Kerala is the most exposed economy in India. There is no, and on top of that, we are getting into free trade agreements that will allow, Wayanad, in the Malabar, what was it famous for historically? Pepper. Today we are allowing import without mention from substandard pepper from Sri Lanka and Vietnam. Malabar pepper was so famous that when Vasco da Gama addressed the Zamorin of Cochin, he asked him, he brought 2 sheaves of pepper and said, "May I take these back with me, sir? Do I have your permission?" And the Zamorin of Cochin told him, you can take as many sheaves of pepper as you like, but how will you take our monsoon? Today even that monsoon is in danger with climate change. So I'm saying the idea is to get the corporate sector out of this. Do you know that in Kerala is one state where it can happen? Remember that large cooperatives, the first great cooperative, Ganesh BD, the BD cooperative, where the workers own it. India Coffee House, ownership, worker owned. Yeah. So Kerala has already shown us the possibilities. It's for us to follow up.
So we'll take the last question. Okay, so last 2 questions. Try to be very brief there and there. Yeah, very quickly. So we just have to wrap up the session before the library security throw us out.
Hi, sorry, I would just like to ask about the specifics of solutions. So
Specific of?
solutions.
Okay.
So as an average person who is not part of the agrarian society, what can a person like myself do to take direct action to help? That's basically
Okay.
it.
Can we take another question
Yeah,
as well?
yeah.
So can you just pass on the mic there?
Yes, thank you so much for the presentation. I am.
Can you speak a bit
yeah,
louder, closer?
thank you for the presentation. Also regarding the solutions, don't you think that because we started this presentation with the fact that the Indians are very proud, actually we're very proud of the fact that there are agriculture and cultivating the land. Don't you think that bringing to the children in the school that proudness back, they will remember in the future the fact that I've learned this and I am coming back to be proud.
Yeah.
And instead of thinking of the fact that maybe the money of the richest people will be distributed in equal parts and so on. Because mind of the child will always come in the future, and when it's reaching an adult age, then in that time they can make a change specific because of the climate.
I would love for that to happen, but please remember that whatever propaganda the child is subjected to in the school, in the evening, she goes back to her home and sees the condition of her parents. In the evening, she goes back and sees parents and grandparents who are doing 5 other jobs in the need to feed her. Right? So we can teach them pride in the schools, but it is deflated at home because she is leaving the world of the school for the real world of her home. That's what happens. So that is not going to be, what can happen is that you make agriculture a viable proposition in the economy, especially in a time, do you know what happened in COVID? Crores of people went back to agriculture. It was the only thing that saved them. So if we make agriculture more attractive, undo the damage, and make it a viable thing of which to be proud of, then we can teach that kid pride in the school. About specifics, I think I already gave the broad solution. So I'm saying your specific question is, what can you do as an individual? Plenty. There are lots of forums. In India, there are 2 forums. Nation for Farmers, which is non-farmers like you and me, who support farmers. We are there to argue their case, to interpret the laws that the government is bringing, to explain what these laws will do. Our ranks include lawyers, intellectuals, poets, artists, all of whom share an empathy with the farmer classes. Right, that's one. So we have to play the role of lobbying. Yeah. When the farmers are in struggle, we join them. When they are not, we lobby and try and educate the public on what is happening to the farmer deliberately and by design. Third, there are things that every one of us can do. There is a thing called CSA. The movement has begun very slowly in India. It's very advanced relatively advanced in California. It began in Italy. It's called the slow food movement. Yeah? Italians are very proud of their food, and justly so. They do not accept quick fix corporate ingredients. They make that food slowly. They make their spaghetti. That's why they call it slow food movement. This is one. But how do we participate? Every time you buy your food products, are you buying it from a mall, a department store, or are you connecting directly with the farmers? There are farmers' markets. It's a joke in India because for 3,000 years there were only farmers' markets. It's in the last 30, 40 years that corporate markets and Reliance Fresh and Godrej Natural are coming. CSA means community supported agriculture. Let us say you're living in a multi-storied building complex in Mumbai. You're living in a multi-storied building complex. Let's say there are 4 into 7. Let's say there are 200 flats in that building, 200 apartments. Even if you get 10% of them, 20 families, you form a CSA. The CSA principle will be, my advice, all that you buy, try linking directly to the farmer and buy food that is produced within 100 kilometers radius of you. Okay? Or 100 miles radius. You know what? You'll be helping fight climate change by lowering use of energy in transportation and preservation. You'll be eating fresh food. And the farmer, what does the farmer get out of it? The farmer, she or he, they get out of it. If they know what your order is, they can plan what will be their crop that year. They know that your complex, your building complex needs 800 kilograms of tomato. It needs 200 kilograms or 200 quintals of wheat, okay, or 100 quintals of wheat. That farmer is able to protect herself or himself against the vagaries of the market. They know they have a captive market. And you can influence that farmer and say, I will buy from you, provided you do not use poisonous chemicals. That you must grow, you must use non-chemical pesticide management methods. So it's a win-win for both sides. You get to eat healthier food. And incidentally, wherever I've been, I've advised universities to adopt that principle in their canteens. Your canteen should get all its food from farmers within 100 kilometers. You also learned in 2017 what the problem of dependence on external sources for food is when you face the blockade in Qatar. Right? So you can, CSA, I have advised, the LIC union has supported me. LIC has, nobody knows how many offices and branches it has in India. I've said all your canteens should order food from 100 kilometers radius. In India, you can do that, the farmer, right? So, if the community supported agriculture, your political intervention in the movements, the struggles, all these involved, those are the specific inputs you can make. Always buy. Where am I buying from? Who am I buying from? Who do the profits go to? When you do the CSA, the profits go directly to the farmer. It proves to be a stimulus for the farm economy.
On that positive note, we will stop here. Thank you. A big round of applause to Mr. Sainath. Thank you so very much. Thank you. So the speaker will be here for the next 15 minutes if anyone wants to kind of have a Q&A before the library closes it. Thank you.